There's a tomb in Spain where the stone hands of two lovers reach for each other across an empty space. For 800 years they've been frozen like that, reaching, yearning, never touching. Millions of people have visited them. They leave flowers. They cry. They whisper prayers. But do you know why these two people died? Because when Diego de Marcilla rode into Teruel after 5 years away, carrying the fortune he'd promised to earn, he was exactly 48 hours early. And those 48 hours, they changed everything. This is their true story. The year was 1217, and the city of Teruel sat like a crown jewel in the kingdom of Aragon, its stone walls gleaming under the Spanish sun. But inside the modest home of the Segura family, young Isabel stood at her window, her heart as heavy as the iron gates that would soon separate her from everything she loved. 5 years, she whispered to herself, clutching the worn piece of parchment in her trembling hands. He asks for 5 years. Her maidservant, old Maria, paused in her sweeping. Señorita, you should forget this foolishness. Diego de Marcilla has nothing. No land, no gold, no title. Your father will never. My father doesn't understand. Isabel spun around, her dark eyes blazing with a fire that made Maria step back. Diego and I have loved each other since we were children. Our souls are bound together, Maria. Nothing can change that. But even as she spoke those defiant words, Isabel knew the truth that gnawed at her heart like a persistent hunger. In medieval Spain, love was a luxury the poor could not afford. And Diego, despite his noble bloodline, was as poor as the beggars who lined the streets during feast days. The sound of horses in the courtyard below made Isabel's pulse quicken. She rushed back to the window, her breath catching as she saw him. Diego de Marcilla, tall and proud despite his threadbare cloak, dismounting with the grace of a born warrior. Even in poverty, he carried himself like the nobleman his ancestors had been before fortune abandoned their house. He's here, Isabel breathed, pressing her palm against the cool stone wall. He's come to ask. Maria crossed herself. May the Virgin protect you both. Don Pedro will not be kind. The old servant was right. Isabel's father, Don Pedro de Segura, was one of the wealthiest merchants in Teruel. His coffers overflowed with gold from his textile trade, and his ambitions for his daughter stretched far beyond the city walls. He had already received inquiries from nobles in Zaragoza, from wealthy landowners in Valencia. The last thing he wanted was for Isabel to throw herself away on a penniless dreamer. The voices rose from the hall below, her father's booming baritone, followed by Diego's younger, more earnest tones. Isabel crept to her door, pressing her ear against the heavy wood. Don Pedro, I come before you as my father came before your father, with honor and truth in my heart. Diego's voice carried the slight tremor of nerves, but also an underlying steel. I love your daughter. I have loved Isabel since we were children playing in your gardens. I wish to make her my wife. Wife? Don Pedro's laugh was cruel, sharp as a blade. You wish to make her your wife? With what boy? Will you feed her love? Clothe her in poetry? House her in the castles you build in your imagination? I ask for time, senor. 5 years. Give me 5 years to make my fortune, to prove myself worthy. 5 years. You hear this madness, wife? Don Pedro must have turned to Isabel's mother. The boy wants 5 years to chase dreams while my daughter's youth fades like morning mist. Don Pedro. Diego's voice grew stronger now, more commanding. I am a Marcilla. My family may have fallen on hard times, but our blood is as noble as any in Aragon. My grandfather fought beside King Alfonso at Zaragoza. My father. Your father died in debt. Don Pedro roared. Your family's glory is dust and memory. I will not condemn my daughter to a life of genteel poverty, living on stories of past greatness while she struggles to put bread on the table. Leave this house, Diego de Marcilla, and do not return unless you bring gold enough to match my daughter's worth, which you never will. Isabel couldn't bear it anymore. She flung open the door and rushed down the stone staircase, her skirts gathered in her fists. Father, please. She burst into the hall to find Diego standing before her father, his face pale but resolute. When his eyes met hers, Isabel saw everything she needed to see: love, determination, and a promise that needed no words. Isabel, return to your room, Don Pedro commanded, his face reddening. No, father. I will speak. Isabel moved to stand beside Diego, close enough that her hand could have touched his, though propriety kept them apart. Diego is right. 5 years is not so long. I am only 17. In 5 years, I will still be young enough to marry, and Diego will have proved himself. Proved himself how? By chasing fairy tales across the sea? By joining mercenary bands? By getting himself killed in some foolish quest? Her father's voice softened slightly as he looked at his daughter, his only child. Isabel, you are my treasure. I want you to have security, comfort, a life of ease. I want love, father. I want Diego. The words hung in the air like incense, heavy and intoxicating. Diego straightened his shoulders. Don Pedro, I swear to you on my family's honor, on my very soul, that I will return in 5 years with wealth enough to deserve Isabel's hand. I will sail to the Holy Land if I must, join the knights in their campaigns. I will seek fortune in Italy, in France, wherever opportunity calls. But I will return, and I will be worthy. Isabel's mother, Dona Catalina, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. She was a woman who had once defied her own father to marry for love, though few remembered this. Pedro, she said quietly, placing a hand on her husband's arm. 5 years. What harm is there in 5 years? If the boy fails, Isabel will still be young enough to make a good match. If he succeeds... She looked at Diego with something like admiration. If he succeeds, we will have a son-in-law who has proved his worth through his own efforts, not inherited wealth. Don Pedro's jaw worked silently. He looked from his wife to his daughter to the earnest young man before him. Finally, with a heavy sigh that seemed to come from the depths of his soul, he spoke. Very well. 5 years, Diego de Marcilla. But hear me well. If you return one day late, if you come back without fortune enough to keep my daughter in the manner she deserves, you will never see Isabel again. I will marry her to another, and you will be banished from Teruel. Do you accept these terms? I do, Diego said without hesitation. And Isabel? Do you consent to wait 5 years? To refuse all other suitors in the hope this boy makes good on his wild promises? Isabel stepped forward, and now she did take Diego's hand. Propriety be damned. I do, father. I will wait not just 5 years but 50 if I must. My heart belongs to Diego now and always. Don Pedro closed his eyes, looking suddenly older. Then it is settled. 5 years from this day. May God have mercy on you both. That night, under a moon so bright it turned the streets of Teruel silver, Diego and Isabel met in her father's garden one last time before his departure. I will write to you, Diego promised, holding both her hands in his. From every port, every city. You will know my journey, my progress. And I will pray for you, Isabel whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Every morning and every night. I will light candles at Santa Maria's church. I will petition every saint in heaven for your safe return. Diego reached into his worn leather pouch and pulled out a simple silver ring. His mother's ring, one of the last valuable things his family possessed. He slipped it onto Isabel's finger. 5 years, my love. 5 years, and then we will never be parted again. Isabel removed a silk ribbon from her hair, the blue of a summer sky. She tied it around Diego's wrist. Wear this, and know that my love travels with you wherever you go. They stood together in the moonlight, two young souls making promises that would echo through the centuries, unaware that fate was already spinning a darker thread into their story. Diego, Isabel said suddenly, gripping his hands tighter. Swear to me. Swear that no matter what happens you will return. Even if you have not made your fortune, come back to me. We will find another way. Promise me. Diego hesitated, thinking of his vow to her father. Then he looked into her eyes and saw his entire world reflected there. I promise, Isabel. 5 years to the day I will return to you. Nothing will keep me away. Not distance, not danger, not even death itself. If they had known the weight those words would carry, perhaps they would have chosen differently. But they were young, and in love, and certain that their will was stronger than fate. 3 days later, Diego de Marcilla rode out of Teruel with nothing but his horse, his sword, and a heart full of desperate hope. Isabel watched from her window until he disappeared beyond the city gates, the blue ribbon fluttering at his wrist like a captured piece of sky. The 5 years had begun. The first year passed like a fever dream. Isabel received letters from Diego, first from Valencia, where he had joined a trading expedition to the east. His words were full of optimism and love, describing the wonders he saw and the opportunities he was pursuing. He had joined a group of merchants traveling to the Holy Land, serving as their guard in exchange for a share of the profits. Isabel kept every letter, reading them until the ink began to fade from her tears and constant handling. She maintained her routine morning prayers at Santa Maria, embroidery with her mother, music lessons with the traveling maestros who passed through Teruel. But her heart was always elsewhere, following Diego's journey across the Mediterranean. The second year brought fewer letters. One arrived from Acre, telling of narrow escapes from bandits and the fortune he was slowly accumulating through wise trading and careful investments. Another came from Damascus, where Diego had befriended a Syrian merchant who was teaching him the ways of Eastern commerce. Isabel treasured these letters even more than the first, knowing how difficult they were to send across such vast distances. But then the letters stopped. The third year was agony. Isabel heard nothing, no word, no sign that Diego still lived. Rumors reached Teruel of wars in the Holy Land, of shipwrecks in the Mediterranean, of plagues sweeping through coastal cities. Each rumor sent Isabel into a spiral of fear that she desperately tried to hide from her parents. "He is dead," Don Pedro said one evening, not unkindly. "Isabel, you must accept this. Young men who go seeking fortune in foreign lands rarely return. Diego was brave, I grant him that, but bravery and luck are not the same thing." "He is not dead," Isabel insisted, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. "I would know if he were dead. I would feel it in my soul. He lives, father. He is simply too far away to send word." Her mother watched her with worried eyes, seeing how thin Isabel had become, how the light in her daughter's eyes had dimmed to a barely flickering ember. Dona Catalina tried to tempt her with delicacies, with new dresses, with invitations to festivities. But Isabel seemed to be slowly fading, as if her soul was gradually departing her body to go searching for Diego across the seas. The fourth year brought a different kind of torture suitors. They came from all over Aragon, drawn by reports of Isabel's beauty and her father's wealth. Don Rodrigo from Zaragoza, a widower with 3 children and a castle. Don Fernando from Valencia, a young nobleman with extensive vineyards. Don Alfonso from Barcelona, a merchant prince whose ships sailed to Genoa and beyond. Isabel refused them all politely but firmly, her mother's ring hidden beneath her sleeve, a constant reminder of the vow she had made. "The agreement was 5 years, father," she reminded Don Pedro each time he pressed her to reconsider. "We still have time." But as the fourth year dragged toward the fifth, even Isabel's certainty began to waver. What if Diego truly was dead? What if he had forgotten her, found another love in some distant land? What if he had made his fortune but decided she was not worth returning for? In her darkest moments, alone in her room with only Maria for company, Isabel would pull out Diego's letters and search them for proof of his love. And always she would find it, in every line, every word, every carefully chosen phrase. Diego loved her. She had to believe that. The fifth year arrived with the cruelty of an executioner's blade, sharp, final, inevitable. Don Pedro's patience was at an end. One of Isabel's persistent suitors, Don Rodrigo de Azagra, had made an offer too generous to refuse. Not only would he pay a substantial bride price, but he would also enter into a lucrative business partnership with Don Pedro, expanding the Segura merchant interests into Castile. "Isabel, you must be reasonable," her father said, his voice heavy with a mixture of frustration and genuine concern. "It has been nearly 5 years. Diego has not written in 2 years. Even if he is alive, he has clearly failed in his quest. Would you have me wait until you are too old to marry? Until opportunities pass us by?" "The 5 years are not complete, father. We agreed. We agreed to 5 years. It is now 4 years and 9 months. If Diego were to return, he would be here by now, making preparations, sending word ahead. His silence is his answer, Isabel. He is either dead or he has abandoned you. Either way, the result is the same." Isabel felt as if the ground was crumbling beneath her feet. "Please, father. 3 more months. Just 3 more months. I have given Don Rodrigo my word. The betrothal will be announced at the Feast of Santiago, 1 month from now. The wedding will take place 2 months after that. This is my final decision." That night, Isabel knelt in Santa Maria Church until her knees ached and her throat was raw from whispered prayers. "Please," she begged whatever divine powers might be listening, "please let him come back. I will do anything, sacrifice anything. Just let Diego return to me." But the stone saints stared down at her with impassive faces, and the candles guttered in the draught, their light flickering like her dying hope. 3 weeks before her betrothal was to be announced, Isabel made a decision. She would not marry Don Rodrigo. She would enter a convent instead, dedicating her life to God since she could not dedicate it to Diego. At least in a convent, she would not betray her vow. At least there she could wait for Diego in peace, even if that wait lasted her entire life. She told her mother first, expecting resistance. But Dona Catalina merely held her daughter close and wept quietly, understanding the depth of Isabel's love in a way Don Pedro never could. "Are you certain, my daughter? Life in a convent is hard, and you would be forever separated from us, from any chance of happiness. Without Diego, mother, there is no happiness. Only this way can I remain true to my vow. Please help me convince father." But Don Pedro was adamant. "No daughter of mine will hide in a convent to nurse a broken heart. You will marry Don Rodrigo, you will bear his children, and you will forget this foolish infatuation. That is final." The Feast of Santiago arrived with all the pageantry Teruel could muster. The streets were decorated with banners, musicians played in the plazas, and the scent of roasting meat and sweet wine filled the air. In the great hall of the Segura house, Don Pedro had gathered the city's elite to announce his daughter's betrothal. Isabel dressed in her finest gown, the deep burgundy silk her mother had commissioned from Toledo. But she felt as if she were dressing for her funeral, not her betrothal feast. The silver ring on her finger, Diego's ring, felt like a burning coal against her skin. As the guests assembled and the feast began, Isabel moved through the celebration like a ghost, smiling mechanically, responding to congratulations with hollow words. Don Rodrigo sat beside her, a decent man by all accounts, but every time he tried to engage her in conversation, Isabel felt bile rise in her throat. The moment came for the announcement. Don Pedro stood, raising his goblet, preparing to seal Isabel's fate with his words. And then the doors to the hall burst open. A figure stood silhouetted against the evening light, tall, broad-shouldered, his clothes dusty from hard travel. For a heartbeat, the hall fell silent, everyone turning to stare at the interruption. Isabel's goblet slipped from her fingers, shattering on the stone floor. "Diego," she whispered, then louder, "Diego." He strode into the hall, and as he came into the light, Isabel saw how the years had changed him. He was no longer the earnest young man who had left Teruel. His face was weathered by sun and wind, his frame had filled out with muscle, and his eyes held the hard knowledge of one who had seen much of the world's cruelty. But when those eyes found Isabel across the crowded hall, they softened with all the love she remembered. "Forgive my intrusion, Don Pedro," Diego said, his voice deeper and more commanding than before. "But I believe I am not late. By my counting, I am here with 2 days to spare before the 5 years are complete." The hall erupted in whispers. Don Pedro's face went from red to white to red again. Don Rodrigo rose from his seat, his hand moving to his sword. "Who are you to burst into this celebration?" Don Rodrigo demanded. "I am Diego de Marcilla," Diego replied calmly, though his hand moved to his own blade. "And I have come to claim what was promised to me, the right to ask for Isabel de Segura's hand in marriage." Don Pedro found his voice. "You dare? After 5 years of silence? After letting my daughter weep and worry herself sick? After making my fortune as I swore I would." Diego reached into his doublet and pulled out a leather purse, which he tossed onto the table before Don Pedro. Gold coins spilled out, glinting in the torchlight. "This is merely a token of what I have earned. I have traded in Damascus and Baghdad. I have fought with the Knights Hospitaller and been rewarded for my service. I have invested wisely in Venetian ventures. I have kept my vow, Don Pedro. Now I ask you to keep yours." The silence in the hall was absolute. All eyes moved from Diego to Don Pedro to Isabel, who stood frozen, torn between joy at Diego's return and horror at what his timing meant. "You are too late," Don Pedro said finally, his voice heavy with something that might have been regret. "I have given my word to Don Rodrigo. The betrothal has been agreed upon. My daughter will marry him, not you. But the 5 years are practically complete, yes. But you did not arrive before this commitment was made. You did not send word ahead. Isabel's fate is decided." Diego turned to Isabel, and the naked anguish on his face nearly broke her. "Isabel, tell him you will wait for me, that you will refuse this marriage. The agreement was 5 years. Those 5 years are not yet expired." Isabel opened her mouth, but no words came, because she saw the trap her father had laid, the cruel precision of his timing. Yes, the 5 years were not complete, but her betrothal was already announced, witnesses already gathered. To break it now would disgrace her family, possibly even start a feud with Don Rodrigo's house. She began, and tears spilled down her cheeks. "Diego, She has made her choice, Don Pedro said firmly. She will honor her family's commitment. Guards, escort Don Diego from these premises. Wait. Diego's voice cracked with desperation. Isabel, please. After everything, after 5 years of suffering and struggle, of dreaming every night of returning to you, you would cast me aside for propriety? For your father's ambition? It is not her choice to make, Don Rodrigo interjected, his voice cold. The betrothal is sealed. The contracts are written. Diego de Marcilla, you return with gold, but you are too late for love. Accept defeat with grace. Diego looked around the hall at the assembled faces, some pitying, some contemptuous, some merely uncomfortable with the drama unfolding before them. Then his eyes returned to Isabel, and in them she saw her last chance at happiness slipping away like water through her fingers. I am sorry, she whispered, so quietly that only those nearest could hear. Diego, I am so sorry. Something died in Diego's eyes then. The last ember of hope extinguished, leaving only ashes. He nodded slowly, as if confirming something he had feared all along. Then I have been a fool, he said quietly. I have wasted 5 years of my life chasing a dream that was already dead. Forgive me, Don Pedro, for disturbing your celebration. I will trouble you no further. He turned to leave, and Isabel felt her heart breaking so completely that she wondered she didn't simply fall dead on the spot. Every instinct screamed at her to run after him, to damn the consequences and choose love over duty. But she stood frozen, trapped by the weight of expectations and honor and filial duty, watching the man she loved walk out of her life forever. As Diego reached the door, he paused and looked back one final time. I kept my promise, Isabel, he said, his voice barely audible over the stunned silence. I hope that brings you some comfort in the years to come. Then he was gone, leaving only the echo of his footsteps in the stone hall and a pain in Isabel's chest so acute she pressed her hand over her heart, certain it must be bleeding. The wedding preparations consumed the following weeks like a relentless tide. Seamstresses arrived with silks and velvets. Musicians were hired. Invitations were sent to nobles throughout Aragon. Through it all, Isabel moved like a woman already dead, going through the motions expected of her while her soul screamed in agony. She tried once more to change her father's mind, going to him in his study 3 days after the disastrous feast. Father, please. You said 5 years. Diego kept his part of the bargain. It is not fair. Life is not fair, Isabel, Don Pedro said, not unkindly. He looked older, tired, as if the confrontation with Diego had taken something from him too. Yes, Diego returned within the 5 years. But barely. And in that time you had already agreed to marry Don Rodrigo. What would you have me do? Break my word to a powerful nobleman? Risk feuds and business partnerships? You would ask me to break my word to Diego instead? Diego is a nobody, Isabel. A man with some gold, yes, but no lands, no permanent connections. Don Rodrigo can give you security, status, a future. Your children will want for nothing. Except a mother who is not dying inside every moment of her existence. Don Pedro flinched at that. You are young. This pain will fade. In a year, 2 years, you will barely remember Diego de Marcilla. But Isabel knew better. This was not a pain that would fade with time. It was a wound that would bleed for the rest of her life. She tried to see Diego, sending Maria to find him with messages. But Diego had vanished from Teruel. Some said he had ridden north toward the mountains. Others claimed he had taken a ship back to the east, unable to bear remaining in the city that held such bitter memories. No one knew for certain, and no one seemed particularly concerned about the fate of a broken-hearted young man. The wedding date was set, a grand celebration to take place at the height of summer. Isabel went through the motions of preparation, standing still as seamstresses pinned and adjusted her wedding gown, tasting dishes she couldn't bring herself to eat, approving flowers she couldn't bring herself to care about. At night she would lie awake thinking of Diego. Was he safe? Was he suffering as she was? Did he hate her for choosing duty over love? The questions tormented her more than any physical pain could. 2 weeks before the wedding, Isabel's health began to fail. She couldn't eat without feeling nauseous. She couldn't sleep without nightmares. Her skin took on a pallor that alarmed her mother, and dark circles appeared under her eyes, making her look like a beautiful ghost. You must eat, child, Dona Catalina pleaded, trying to coax Isabel to take some broth. You are wasting away before our eyes. Perhaps that would be for the best, Isabel replied hollowly. Then Don Rodrigo would be spared a wife who can never love him, and I would be spared a life that has become unbearable." Her mother wept at these words, holding Isabel close. "I am so sorry, my daughter. I wish there was something I could do. But your father is right, the contracts are signed, the arrangements made. To break them now would destroy our family's honor and position." "Then honor demands too high a price," Isabel whispered. The night before her wedding, Isabel stood at her window, looking out over the sleeping city of Teruel. Somewhere out there, perhaps Diego looked at the same stars she did. Perhaps he thought of her as she thought of him. Perhaps he too wondered how their story had ended in such tragedy. She pulled out his letters one final time, reading them by candlelight until tears blurred the words. Then carefully she folded them and placed them in a small wooden box, along with the blue ribbon she had tied around his wrist 5 years ago. He had left it behind the night of the feast, a silent severing of their bond. "I am sorry, my love," she whispered to the empty air. "I was not brave enough. I was not strong enough to defy the world for you. Forgive me if you can." A knock at her door made her start. Maria entered, her old face creased with unusual urgency. "Señorita, there is someone here." He came to the servant's entrance. "He begs for a moment of your time." Isabel's heart leapt. "Diego." "Yes, señorita. But you must come quickly before the household stirs. If Don Pedro discovers this." Isabel didn't wait to hear more. She threw a cloak over her nightgown and followed Maria through the dark corridors, her bare feet silent on the stone floors. They descended to the kitchen, and there in the shadows by the door stood Diego. He looked terrible. His face was haggard, his eyes red-rimmed as if he hadn't slept in weeks. When he saw Isabel, he seemed to crumple slightly, as if the sight of her caused him physical pain. "I should not have come," he said immediately. "It is madness, I know. Tomorrow you marry another." "I have no right." "You have every right," Isabel interrupted, moving toward him. Now that she saw him, all the careful restraint she had maintained shattered. "Diego, I am so sorry. I wanted to refuse, to run away with you, but my father—" "I know." Diego's voice was gentle despite his obvious suffering. "I know the position you are in. I came not to beg you to change your mind, but to say goodbye properly. I could not let you marry without telling you one more time that I love you. I have loved you since we were children, Isabel. I will love you until I draw my last breath. 5 years ago I promised to return to you and I kept that promise. Now I make a new promise. I will never stop loving you. No matter how many years pass, no matter how many oceans separate us." Isabel reached for him, and this time there was no propriety to stop her. She threw her arms around him, clinging to him as a drowning person clings to a piece of driftwood. "I love you," she sobbed against his chest. "I love you, Diego. Only you. Always you." They held each other in the darkness, two souls bound together by a love that society and circumstance had torn asunder. For a few precious moments there was no wedding tomorrow, no Don Rodrigo, no disappointed father. There was only Diego and Isabel, and the terrible knowledge that this was their goodbye. Finally, gently, Diego pulled back. He took her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "Be happy, Isabel. Or if you cannot be happy, at least be at peace. Don Rodrigo is a good man. He will treat you well. Bear his children, build a life with him. And perhaps in time this pain will ease." "Never," Isabel whispered fiercely. "It will never ease. Every day for the rest of my life I will think of you. Every night, I will dream of what might have been." Diego leaned forward and pressed a kiss to her forehead, gentle as a benediction. "Then I will live on in your dreams, as you will live on in mine. Goodbye, my love. My only love." He turned to leave, and Isabel watched through blinding tears as he walked out of her life for the second and final time. But as he reached the door, she called out to him. "Diego, wait. One thing more. Tomorrow when I stand at the altar, when I speak my vows to another man, know that in my heart I am speaking them to you. Know that no matter whose ring I wear, my soul belongs to you. Forever." Diego's face contorted with emotion. He nodded once, unable to speak, then disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. Isabel sank to the floor, Maria rushing to support her. "There now, child," the old woman murmured. "Let it out. Let the tears come." And Isabel wept as she had never wept before, great racking sobs that seemed to tear something vital loose inside her. She wept for Diego, for herself, for the life they would never share. She wept until she had no tears left. until she was empty of everything except a dull, persistent ache that she knew would be her constant companion from this day forward. When dawn broke over Teruel, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Isabel was still on the cold kitchen floor, staring at nothing. Her wedding day had begun, and she felt more dead than alive. The wedding was everything a noble marriage should be: lavish, well-attended, full of ceremony and celebration. Isabel wore white silk embroidered with silver thread, her dark hair crowned with orange blossoms. She looked like a vision of bridal perfection, except for her eyes, which remained utterly lifeless throughout the ceremony. Don Rodrigo seemed not to notice, or perhaps he simply assumed his bride was overwhelmed by the occasion. He was attentive, kind even, speaking his vows with genuine warmth. Isabel responded mechanically, the words turning to ash in her mouth. "Do you, Isabel de Segura, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" A pause. In that pause, Isabel saw everything she was giving up. Every dream, every hope, every possibility of joy. She saw Diego's face as he had looked the night before, full of love and sorrow. "I do," she whispered, and felt something inside her die with those two words. The priest completed the ceremony. Bells rang throughout Teruel, announcing the union. The guests cheered and threw flower petals. Don Pedro beamed with satisfaction at the successful match, and Isabel stood beside her new husband, feeling like a prisoner who had just heard her sentence pronounced. The feast that followed was a blur of faces and food and forced smiles. Isabel danced when required, smiled when expected, accepted congratulations with gracious words that meant nothing. Inside, she was screaming. As night fell and the celebration showed no signs of ending, Isabel pleaded exhaustion and was escorted to her new chambers in Don Rodrigo's house. Chambers she would now share with a man she did not love, beginning a life she did not want. She stood at the window of her new room, looking out at the unfamiliar view. Somewhere in this city, Diego was suffering as she suffered. The thought gave her no comfort, only added to her anguish. A knock at the door announced Don Rodrigo's entry. He had dismissed the servants and now stood before his new wife, his expression uncertain. "Isabel," he began, then paused. "I am aware this marriage is not what you would have chosen. I know about Diego de Marcilla, about your attachment to him." Isabel turned, surprised by his directness. Don Rodrigo continued, "I will not pretend that this does not wound me. What man wishes to know his wife's heart belongs to another? But I am a patient man, and I hope that in time, you might find some affection for me. I will not force myself upon you tonight. I will give you time to adjust to your new circumstances." He was trying to be kind, Isabel realized. He was genuinely attempting to make this bearable for her, and somehow his kindness made everything worse. It would be easier if he were a monster, if she could hate him. But Don Rodrigo was simply a decent man caught up in a tragedy not of his making. "Thank you," she managed to say. "You are generous." He nodded and moved to leave, then paused at the door. "Isabel, I will do everything in my power to make you happy. I swear this to you. Perhaps it is not the happiness you dreamed of, but it will be something. Give me a chance to prove myself worthy of you." When he was gone, Isabel collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. This was her life now. This room, this man, this slow death of the spirit. She thought of convents, of the peace she might have found there. At least in a convent, she would have been alone with her grief. Here she would have to perform happiness, pretend contentment, live a lie for the rest of her days. The days that followed were a special kind of torment. Don Rodrigo was true to his word. Patient, considerate, never demanding more than Isabel could give. He showered her with gifts, took her on excursions, tried everything he could think of to win a smile from his silent, withdrawn wife. But Isabel only grew paler, thinner, more ghost-like with each passing day. She fulfilled her duties as a wife mechanically, overseeing the household, appearing at Don Rodrigo's side for social obligations, maintaining the appearance of a proper marriage. But there was no life in her, no spark. She was a beautiful shell housing a broken spirit. Her mother visited often, bringing delicacies and conversation, desperately trying to reignite some interest in life within her daughter. "Isabel, please," Dona Catalina begged one afternoon, finding her daughter staring out the window at nothing. "You must try. You must find a way to go on." "I am going on, mother," Isabel replied in a voice as flat as still water. "I wake each morning. I dress. I eat when food is placed before me. I speak when spoken to. What more can be asked of me? Life, Isabel. I ask you to live, not merely exist. But Isabel had no answer for that. How could she explain that the part of her that knew how to truly live had died the moment she said, "I do," to a man who was not Diego? 2 weeks into her marriage, Isabel received news that nearly finished her. A servant brought word that Diego de Marcilla had been seen at an inn on the outskirts of Teruel. He had been there for days, drinking heavily, his gold dwindling away as he drowned his sorrows in wine. "They say he speaks of leaving Aragon forever," the servant reported. "He says there is nothing left for him here." Isabel felt panic rise in her chest. Diego was destroying himself, and it was her fault. She had to see him, had to somehow make him understand that he must live, even if she could not. That night, after Don Rodrigo had retired to his own chambers, he still gave her space, hoping time would soften her heart. Isabel did something she had never done before. She slipped out of the house, wrapped in a dark cloak, and made her way through the sleeping streets of Teruel to the inn where Diego was staying. She found him in a back room, sprawled in a chair with an empty wine bottle at his feet. The sight of him broke her heart all over again. This vital, proud man reduced to this, it was unbearable. "Diego," she whispered. His head jerked up, and for a moment she saw hope flash in his eyes before it died again. "Isabel? No, I am dreaming. Too much wine has finally driven me mad. I am real." She moved closer, kneeling beside his chair. "Diego, you cannot do this to yourself. You must stop drinking. Must stop this self-destruction." He laughed bitterly. "Why? What purpose do I have now? I spent 5 years building a fortune to win you, and for what? To watch you marry another? To torture myself with the knowledge that you lie in his bed each night while I—" He broke off, turning his face away. "I do not lie in his bed," Isabel said quietly. "Don Rodrigo has been respectful. He gives me time." "How generous of him." Diego spat, then immediately looked ashamed. "Forgive me. I know none of this is your fault. Your father, society, honor, they all conspired against us. But knowing that doesn't make the pain any less." Isabel reached out and took his hand. "Then we suffer together. Diego, I am dying inside. Every day is agony. But I survive it because I know you are somewhere in the world, alive, breathing. If you destroy yourself, then I truly will have nothing left. Please, for me, live. Find a way to go on." Diego turned to look at her, his eyes bloodshot but suddenly focusing with a terrible intensity. "Do you know what you ask? You ask me to live knowing I can never have you? To watch from a distance as you grow old with another man, bear his children, build a life that should have been ours." "Yes," Isabel whispered. "I ask you to bear the unbearable as I must bear it, because the alternative, a world without you in it, is more than I can endure." They sat together in that dark room, hands clasped, two people caught in a trap of their own making in society's design. Finally, Diego nodded slowly. "I will live," he said, his voice raw. "But I cannot stay in Teruel. I cannot watch you from afar, see you in the streets, hear news of your life. I will go away, far away, and I will try to build some semblance of a life. But Isabel, know this, wherever I go, whatever I do, you will be in my thoughts every moment of every day. You are written on my soul in letters of fire. And you on mine," Isabel replied, tears streaming down her face. "Go then, Diego. Go far from here and try to find peace. And know that my love goes with you today and always." She leaned forward and kissed him, not with passion but with profound tenderness. A kiss that was both greeting and farewell, promise and apology. Diego's arms came around her, holding her as if he could somehow bind her to him through sheer force of will. But eventually they had to part. Isabel rose, knowing that if she stayed one moment longer, she would never find the strength to leave. At the door she looked back one final time. "Goodbye, Diego. May you find happiness somewhere, even if we cannot find it together. Goodbye, my love. My only love." Isabel fled into the night, her cloak billowing behind her like dark wings. She ran through the empty streets until her lungs burned and her legs gave out, finally collapsing in the shadow of Santa Maria Church. There she stayed until dawn, praying to a God who seemed deaf to her pleas, begging for the strength to endure what could not be changed. When she returned home just before sunrise, she found Don Rodrigo waiting for her. His face was stern, but there was hurt in his eyes. "Where have you been, Isabel?" She could have lied, should have lied, but she was so tired of pretending. "I went to see Diego de Marcilla, to say goodbye." Don Rodrigo's jaw tightened. "I see. And did anything improper occur?" "We kissed," Isabel admitted, meeting his eyes directly. but nothing more. I wanted him to know that even though I am your wife, my heart will always belong to him. I wanted him to know he must go on living, even though I know the cruelty of that request." For a long moment, Don Rodrigo simply stared at her. Then, surprisingly, his expression softened slightly. "Isabel, I have tried to be patient. I have tried to give you space and time, but I am not a saint. I am a man who has married a woman who loves another, and that is difficult." "I know," Isabel whispered. "I am sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Yet you do hurt me every day with your silences and your sadness and your obvious longing for another. Tell me honestly, will you ever be able to give me even a small portion of what you gave to him?" Isabel wanted to lie, to offer him false hope. But she owed him the truth. "I don't know. I truly don't know. Part of me died when I married you instead of Diego. I don't know if that part will ever heal, or if I will remain broken forever." Don Rodrigo closed his eyes, looking suddenly old. "At least you are honest. It is something." He opened his eyes again and looked at her with a mixture of resignation and determination. "Very well. I release you from the obligation to pretend. You need not smile when you are sad, nor feign interest in things that bore you. Be yourself, Isabel, even if that self is sorrowful. Perhaps in time, honesty will build what pretense cannot." It was more grace than Isabel deserved, and she knew it. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You are a better man than I deserve." "Perhaps," Don Rodrigo replied. "Or perhaps I am simply a fool, hoping that kindness will eventually win what force cannot." The weeks passed, and Isabel settled into a strange half-life. She performed her duties, but without enthusiasm. She spoke to Don Rodrigo, but their conversations were shallow, careful. She existed, but she did not live. And then 1 month after her wedding, Diego de Marcilla left Teruel. Isabel heard the news from Maria, who had heard it from a merchant's servant. Diego had sold his remaining possessions, packed what little he had, and ridden out of the city at dawn, heading north toward France. He had told no one where he was going or when, or if he would return. The news should have brought Isabel some measure of relief. Now she would not have to worry about accidentally encountering him, would not have to endure the torture of knowing he was so close yet forever beyond her reach. Instead, she felt as if her last anchor to life had been severed. As long as Diego had been in Teruel, there had been some small irrational hope that circumstances might change, that some miracle might occur. But now he was gone, truly and completely gone, and Isabel felt herself sliding into a darkness from which there seemed no escape. She stopped eating almost entirely. She stopped sleeping, lying awake night after night, staring at the ceiling. She stopped speaking except when absolutely necessary. It was as if her body had finally realized what her mind had known all along, that she could not survive without Diego. Don Rodrigo grew alarmed and summoned physicians. They prescribed tonics and bloodletting, special diets and fresh air. Nothing helped. Isabel continued her slow decline, fading like a flower deprived of sunlight. Her mother came daily, holding her daughter's hand, weeping and praying. "Please, Isabel. Please don't leave me. Fight this darkness. Think of your family, your future, your—" "I have no future, mother," Isabel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My future left Teruel a month ago, and he took my heart with him." Don Pedro came too, his bluster finally cracking to reveal genuine fear. "Daughter, I am sorry. I see now that I should have let you marry Diego, should have honored the agreement regardless of Don Rodrigo's offer. I thought I was securing your future. I see now that I have destroyed it. Please forgive me. Please live." But Isabel was beyond even the comfort of her father's belated remorse. She simply turned her face to the wall and closed her eyes. It was late autumn when Diego de Marcilla received the news. He was in southern France working as a guard for a merchant convoy, trying to rebuild his life one day at a time. The letter came from an old friend in Teruel. Isabel was dying, it said. The physicians could find nothing wrong with her body, but her spirit was failing. She wasted away a little more each day, and no one believed she would see the winter. Diego read the letter 3 times, his hands shaking. Then, without a word to anyone, he saddled his horse and rode south, pushing the animal to its limits, stopping only when absolutely necessary. One thought consumed him. He had to see Isabel one more time. He had to tell her to fight, to live, to find some reason to go on. He rode for 3 days and nights, arriving in Teruel on the evening of the 3rd day. He went directly to Don Rodrigo's house. no longer caring about propriety or scandal or anything except seeing Isabel. Don Rodrigo himself answered Diego's frantic pounding on the door. The nobleman looked haggard, aged by worry and sleepless nights. "Diego de Marcilla," Don Rodrigo said flatly, "I should throw you out. I should have you arrested for disturbing my household." "Please," Diego begged, all pride gone. "Please let me see her. I heard she is ill. I had to come. I had to. See the woman you love?" Don Rodrigo's laugh was bitter. "The woman who is my wife, yet has never truly been mine?" "Yes, Diego, I know exactly why you're here." "Then you also know that I might be able to help her, to give her a reason to fight." "Please, Don Rodrigo. If you care for her at all." "Care for her?" Don Rodrigo's voice rose. "I love her, you fool. I have loved her since the first moment I saw her, and I have watched helplessly as she has slowly died before my eyes, pining for you. Do you think this has been easy for me? To know that my wife would rather die than spend her life with me?" Diego had no answer for that. He simply stood there, his eyes pleading. Finally, Don Rodrigo's shoulders sagged. "Very well. Perhaps you can reach her where I cannot. But know this, Diego, if she dies, I will hold you responsible. Your love has destroyed her as surely as any poison." He led Diego through the house to Isabel's chambers. The room was dim, curtains drawn, the air heavy with the scent of medicinal herbs and something else, the peculiar odor of decay that accompanies prolonged illness. Isabel lay in the bed, so pale and thin she seemed already more spirit than flesh. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. For a terrible moment, Diego thought he had arrived too late. "Isabel," he whispered, moving to her bedside. "Isabel, it's me. It's Diego. I came back." Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment there was confusion, then disbelief, then a joy so profound it hurt to witness. "Diego." Her voice was barely audible. "No, I am dreaming. I must be dreaming." "You're not dreaming, my love. I'm here. I'm really here." He took her hand, so cold, so fragile, and brought it to his lips. "Isabel, what have you done to yourself?" "I'm dying, Diego," she said simply, as if discussing the weather. "I've been dying since the day I married Don Rodrigo. My body is just finally catching up with my spirit." "No." Diego's voice was fierce. "No, I refuse to accept that. You must fight, Isabel. You must get better." "Why?" The question was plaintive, childlike. "What reason do I have to fight? You are gone. My life is a prison. Every day is torment. Why should I endure it?" Diego looked at Don Rodrigo, who stood in the doorway watching with an expression of profound sadness. Then he looked back at Isabel. "Because I ask you to," Diego said. "Because I need you to live, even if we cannot be together. Isabel, if you die, then all the suffering, yours, mine, everyone's, will have been for nothing. But if you live, then perhaps someday, somehow there might be meaning to all this pain." Isabel's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so tired, Diego. So very tired. I know, my love. I know." He gently stroked her hair, remembering when it had been thick and lustrous, not this thin, brittle stuff. "But you are strong. Stronger than you know. Find that strength now. Fight your way back. For me, if for nothing else. Will you stay?" The hope in her voice nearly broke him. "If I fight, if I try to live, will you stay in Teruel?" Diego looked again at Don Rodrigo, whose face had gone hard. They both knew the answer. Diego's presence would only make things worse, would prevent Isabel from ever finding peace with her marriage. "No," Diego said gently, though the word cut like a knife. "I cannot stay. My presence here only hurts you more. But I will write to you if Don Rodrigo permits it. And I will know wherever I am, that you are alive somewhere in the world. That will be enough. It will have to be enough." Isabel's face crumpled. "Then I cannot do it. I cannot live without you, Diego. I thought I could, but I can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Isabel, please." "No." Her voice, though weak, held a note of finality. "I am tired of suffering, tired of existing in this half-life. Let me go, Diego. Let me have peace at last." Diego felt something crack inside his chest. He looked at this woman, this beautiful, brave, broken woman, and knew with sudden terrible clarity that he was losing her. Not to another man, not to distance or circumstances, but to death itself. "Then let me give you one last gift," he said, his voice shaking. "One last memory to carry with you, wherever you're going." He leaned down and kissed her, gently at first, Then with all the love and longing and desperation of 5 years of separation and suffering, Isabel's weak arms came up around his neck, holding him as tightly as her failing strength would allow. For a moment there was no illness, no Don Rodrigo watching from the doorway, no cruel fate. There was only Diego and Isabel, and the love that had sustained them through everything. When they finally parted, Isabel was smiling, the first genuine smile anyone had seen on her face in months. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for coming back one more time. Thank you for that kiss. It was worth surviving for." "Then survive for more," Diego pleaded. "Survive for tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Survive until we're both old and gray, and can look back on all this from the safety of years." But even as he spoke, he could see the light fading from her eyes. Isabel's smile turned sad, infinitely tender. "I love you, Diego de Marcilla," she said, her voice growing fainter. "I have loved you since we were children. I will love you beyond death, beyond time itself. In whatever comes after this life, I will find you. I promise." "Isabel, no. Take care of yourself, my love. Be happy if you can. And know that I died loving you, which is the only truth that matters." Her eyes closed. Her breathing, already shallow, began to slow. "Isabel." Diego shook her gently, then more urgently. "Isabel, stay with me. Don't you dare leave me now." Don Rodrigo rushed forward, calling for physicians, for servants, for anyone who might help. The house erupted in chaos. Running feet shouted orders, the sound of glass breaking as someone dropped a vial of medicine. But through it all, Diego held Isabel's hand, feeling it grow colder in his grasp, watching her chest rise and fall with decreasing frequency. "Please," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Please don't go. I can't lose you. Not like this. Not now." But Isabel was beyond hearing. She had made her choice, had let go of the thread binding her to life. As the first stars appeared in the autumn sky above Teruel, Isabel de Segura took her last breath, a faint smile still on her lips. Her hand clasped in Diego's. For a long moment no one moved. The room was utterly silent except for the sound of Diego's ragged breathing. Then Don Rodrigo spoke, his voice hollow. "She's gone." Diego looked down at Isabel's peaceful face, and something inside him shattered completely. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be the end of their story. Tragedy piled upon tragedy, all their suffering leading only to death. "No," he said aloud, though he knew it was futile. "No, this isn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to end." But death, as always, had the final word. They buried Isabel de Segura 3 days later, in a ceremony that drew mourners from across Aragon. Word had spread of the tragic young bride who had died of a broken heart, and people came to pay their respects to a love story that had ended in sorrow. Diego attended the funeral, standing apart from the family, his face a mask of grief. Don Rodrigo, to his credit, did not have him removed. Perhaps he understood that Diego's suffering was as profound as his own, that they were both victims of the same cruel fate. As Isabel's body was lowered into the ground in the cemetery of Santa Maria Church, Diego stepped forward and placed a single white rose on her coffin, the flower they had always associated with true love. Then he turned and walked away, his shoulders bent as if carrying an impossible weight. He returned to the inn where he had been staying, locked himself in his room, and did not emerge for 2 days. When the innkeeper finally broke down the door, fearing the worst, he found Diego sitting at the small table, writing feverishly. "The whole story," Diego said without looking up, his voice hoarse. "I'm writing down everything, how we met, how we loved, what we promised, how it all went wrong. Someone should know. Someone should remember." The innkeeper left him to his task, and Diego wrote through the night and into the next day. He wrote of childhood games in the Segura garden, of the promise made 5 years ago, of his travels and trials in distant lands. He wrote of his return to Teruel, of Isabel's forced marriage, of their final meetings and her slow decline. When he finally finished, he sealed the manuscript and gave it to Maria, Isabel's old maidservant. "Keep this safe," he told her. "Someday, when enough time has passed, show it to someone who might understand. Let them know that Isabel de Segura and Diego de Marcilla loved with a love that neither time nor circumstance could diminish." Maria took the manuscript with trembling hands, tears in her eyes. "What will you do now, Don Diego?" "I don't know," he admitted. "What does one do after losing everything that mattered?" He left the inn and walked through Teruel one final time, visiting all the places he had known with Isabel, the garden where they had played as children, the church where she had prayed for his safe return, the plaza where he had first seen her after his 5-year absence. Finally, as sunset painted the sky in shades of blood and gold, Diego made his way to the cemetery. He stood before Isabel's fresh grave, marked by a simple stone that bore only her name and dates. "I'm sorry, my love," he said aloud, not caring who might hear. "I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to defy your father 5 years ago. I'm sorry I wasted precious time seeking fortune when I should have simply taken you and run. I'm sorry for every moment of pain you endured, because I wasn't strong enough to fight for us." The wind whispered through the trees, and for a moment Diego could have sworn he heard Isabel's voice on it, gentle, forgiving, calling him home. "I'm coming," he whispered. "Just give me a little more time, and I'll come to you." He stayed at the grave until full darkness fell, then made his way slowly back through the empty streets. When he reached his room at the inn, he lay down on the narrow bed and closed his eyes. They found him the next morning, Diego de Marcilla, dead in his sleep with no mark upon him and no sign of violence. The physician who examined him was baffled. The young man's heart had simply stopped, as if he had willed himself to follow Isabel into death. "He died of a broken heart," Maria told anyone who would listen. "Just like Señorita Isabel. They could not be together in life, so they went together into death." When news of Diego's death spread through Teruel, Don Rodrigo did something unexpected. He came to the inn and made arrangements for Diego's body to be buried next to Isabel's. When people questioned this decision, asking why he would honor the man who had loved his wife, Don Rodrigo replied simply, "Because Isabel loved him, and I loved Isabel. Let them have in death what cruel fate denied them in life." And so Diego de Marcilla was laid to rest beside Isabel de Segura, their graves so close that if they could reach out, they might touch hands across the thin barrier of earth and stone. The story might have ended there, becoming just another sad tale of thwarted love. But something remarkable happened in the weeks and months that followed. People began to visit the graves, bringing flowers and candles. Young lovers came to pledge their devotion, believing that the blessing of Diego and Isabel might protect their own love. Those suffering heartbreak came seeking comfort, knowing that others had suffered before them and somehow, in some small way, had found peace. The story spread beyond Teruel, carried by travelers and merchants and wandering musicians who turned the tale into ballads. Within a year, people across Aragon knew of the Lovers of Teruel, the young man who kept his promise, and the young woman who died rather than live without him. 10 years after their deaths, the city of Teruel commissioned a sculptor to create proper monuments for Diego and Isabel. The graves were moved to the Church of San Pedro, where elaborate tombs were constructed, 2 figures lying side by side, their hands reaching toward each other but never quite touching, forever yearning across an infinitesimal distance. The tombs became a shrine, a place of pilgrimage for lovers from across Spain and beyond. And still the flowers came, still the candles burned, still the prayers were whispered. Not prayers for Diego and Isabel, but prayers to them, as if love that pure and tragic had somehow transcended death to become something sacred. Maria, now very old, would often sit by the tombs and tell their story to anyone who would listen. She had kept Diego's manuscript safe, and now she shared it freely, ensuring that the truth of their love would not be lost or distorted with time. "They were so young," she would say, her voice quavering with age. "So full of hope and promise. They believed love would be enough, that their devotion could overcome any obstacle. They were wrong, of course. Love is not always enough. But oh, how beautifully they loved. How completely they gave themselves to each other." One day, a young couple came to visit the tombs. A boy and girl who looked remarkably like Diego and Isabel must have looked in their youth. They stood hand in hand, gazing at the carved stone figures. "It's so sad," the girl said, tears in her eyes. "They never got to be together." But her companion shook his head. "I don't think so. Look at their faces, they're peaceful. I think they knew even at the end that what they had was real, that their love was worth all the suffering, all the sacrifice." The girl considered this, then squeezed her companion's hand tighter. "Promise me," she said urgently. "Promise me that if anyone tries to separate us, we'll fight. We'll run away together if we must. Promise me we won't end up like them, destroyed by other people's expectations and demands." The boy kissed her forehead gently. "I promise. We'll learn from their tragedy. We'll be brave where they could not be." Maria, listening from her seat nearby, smiled sadly. She had heard similar promises from countless young lovers over the years. Some had kept them, many had not. Love, she had learned, was both the strongest and most fragile thing in the world, capable of surviving unimaginable hardship, yet equally capable of being crushed by the mere weight of circumstance. Years turned to decades, decades to centuries. Teruel grew and changed, but the tombs of Diego and Isabel remained, becoming ever more elaborate as each generation added its own embellishments. The story was written down in histories, transformed into plays, immortalized in poetry. Scholars debated whether every detail was strictly accurate. Some claimed Diego had been away for 7 years, not 5. Others insisted Isabel had died not of heartbreak but of a physical illness. But the essential truth remained unchanged. Two people had loved each other with a devotion so complete that neither could survive without the other. And still the lovers came year after year, century after century, to stand before the tombs and remember that once long ago, in a city called Teruel, love and tragedy had danced together to create something that would outlast them both. A story that would be told and retold as long as humans had hearts capable of loving and breaking. The tombs remained forever as the sculptor had made them, two figures reaching toward each other across an unbridgeable distance, their fingertips separated by the merest fraction of stone. Some said that on certain nights when the moon was full and the church was empty, you could see the hands move, fingertips finally touching in the darkness, achieving in death what life had denied them. Whether this was true or merely romantic fancy, no one could say for certain. But it didn't matter. The lovers of Teruel had already achieved their own form of immortality, not in the stone that marked their graves, but in the hearts of everyone who heard their story and thought, even for a moment, about the terrible beauty of love that endures beyond all reason, beyond all hope, beyond even death itself. And if you visit Teruel today, you will still find their tombs in the mausoleum, still find flowers laid by strangers who believed in love enough to honor two people who died more than 8 centuries ago. You will find young couples holding hands, whispering promises to each other. You will find the heartbroken seeking solace. You will find proof that some loves, however tragic their endings, never truly die. Because Diego and Isabel taught us something essential, that love is not measured by its duration or its happiness, but by its depth and sincerity. They showed us that some connections transcend the practical considerations of wealth and status and family expectations. They demonstrated, at terrible cost, that the heart has its own logic that defies reason and bends to no authority but its own. Their story ends in tragedy, yes, but it is a tragedy that affirms rather than negates love's power. They could not be together, but neither could they stop loving each other. And in that stubborn, foolish, beautiful refusal to love anyone else, they created something that would echo through the ages. A testament to devotion, a monument to loss, and ultimately, a celebration of the human heart's capacity to feel deeply, completely, eternally. The lovers of Teruel remind us that we are capable of such feeling, such devotion. And in remembering them we honor not just their memory, but the part of ourselves that still believes, despite everything, despite all evidence to the contrary, that love is real, love matters, and love endures. Even when it breaks our hearts. Especially when it breaks our hearts. In the Church of San Pedro in Teruel, Spain, the tombs remain and the lovers sleep on, their hands forever reaching across the stone, reminding us that some loves are too powerful to be contained by a single lifetime, and that the greatest tragedies often contain the greatest truths about what it means to be human.